things that I've told myself is I was sent here to feel these feelings, and I'm in it, and I've got to feel it. And like sometimes it doesn't feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but there is.
There's not a day that's gone by since I quit drinking that I haven't thought about starting drinking again. You know what I mean? There hasn't been a day that's gone by that I've been like, dang it, I feel awful. I should do something different.
If I would have continued on, I probably would have led my life that way forever and probably would have been sitting there doing the same thing today.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Breaking Point podcast. I'm Eric. I'm sitting here with my brother, Mike. We're going to talk a little bit about today about how having some of the rough times can affect those. Just talk about some coping mechanisms and being able to recognize the breaking points in our lives and decide to make things better. So, Mike, I appreciate you coming on. Look forward to it. Just so everybody knows, my brother and I, we sort of have, when it comes to like brain and sort of, mental craziness, we sort of have a lot of the same attributes. We don't have the exact same parents, different moms, but same kind of funky brain, right? I call mine a little bit broken, not a little bit, it's broken brain, right? Yeah. It's a broken brain. And so I try to tell everyone a little bit, right in the beginning, just maybe I've given everyone my story, sort of overview of my story, but not everybody, I left out a lot of details. So I try to give like a little, and there might even be things that you'll hear about me that you don't even know, yeah. Right? And I'll probably hear
vice
things.
Versa.
Yeah. So as you know, I'm a almost 20 year sober alcoholic, right? Drank pretty much daily for well over a decade. Made me sick, made me feel like I was going to die, the whole thing. While I'm doing that, though, right? I mean, when you're kind of in the middle of it, you don't feel that. You just sort of feel that sort of you're coping with whatever thing that's happening up here. But a lot of the things that would happen, I made such horrible decisions. Every single time I drank, I had my car with me, and I never called anybody. And I think back on that now, and I think to myself, I mean, there were times where I would get home, I would get home, I'd wake up at home and think to myself, like, I literally had to go check my car to make sure that I didn't have evidence of, like, that I hadn't hit
something had happened
anybody on my way home, because I couldn't remember getting home, right? So, and it's kind of shameful. It's very shameful to me that I got to that point where, like, I'm literally getting up and coming out and looking at my bumper, making sure that I didn't hit somebody and just drive away. Now imagine, I think to myself, like, what if I had seen that, right? Like, what if that had actually happened? And like, it would have ruined a life, somebody else's life, would have ruined their family's lives, would have ruined all the people around them, would have ruined mine. You would have been affected by that, right? Anybody, like everybody that would have touched, right? And it's all because I was addicted, and I'm still addicted, but at that point I was succumbing to the addiction of alcohol. And I drank, and I know you've had that struggle in the past as well. And for me, it was a coping mechanism. I didn't realize that I had anxiety, right? When I was a kid, was not a thing. We didn't even know about that kind of stuff. And when I took that first drink at 15, I chased that. And those are the paths that it led me down, where I'm checking my bumper to make sure that there's not stuff on it that I might have hit, So that's another detail about me, and kind of the darkness, the things that, sort of sit back in my past, that in that sort of dark pit that it all was collected in. So I want to talk today a little bit we have a lot of fun. We're brothers. We have a lot of fun. We do a lot of fun things, but we also have a lot of things in our past that probably we don't talk about as often as we should, especially as guys, mm-hmm. Right? There's a stigma to talking about. It's getting better. Like, people are more accepting of things. But I want to hear a little bit, because growing up with you as a kid, I don't know if you know this, but I used to sleep with a baseball bat next to my bed. So that if there was a fire, I could break the window and get you guys out, because I was so nervous, right? That something bad was going to happen. And I know you had a lot of the same kind of things as you got older, maybe not as a little kid, but as you got older and you could recognize that the world wasn't rosy and peachy. You had a lot of things that kind of like ate at you a lot. Talk about that with me a little bit.
Yeah. I first of all love having these conversations. My LinkedIn is mental health advocate because I think it's not talked about enough. And I think we'll dive into that a lot and go over some of the things that you're talking about. I think what's amazing is one of the things that we could talk about is, as we're sitting here, it really brings up some emotional things for me that I don't know if you know either. I was struggling deeply right as I went to college, and I was so I guess I should take a step back. So I was diagnosed with OCD and obviously general anxiety disorder pretty young, or not very young, but relatively older as I had gone through. I got those when I was 20 years old. They also told me that I was bipolar 2, which is something we're actually working through right now to see if that's the actual diagnosis that we should be handling. But I was struggling deeply. So, as you guys know, we're brothers. I called my grandma and asked, I was like, somebody in our family has to have a history of this because I know Eric struggles with it. I know that I struggle with these things. Somebody has to have some history of this and try to understand where we came from and how these things happened. So I reached out to our grandma and I asked her, I was like, do you know anybody, in particular, any men in the family or grandpa? I had a feeling to ask about Grandpa Walker. And I asked about Grandpa Walker, and I said, do you know if he struggled with OCD or bad anxiety? And Grandma just started to cry. And she said that absolutely he did. And we're talking about a gentle giant, one of the greatest men that we knew, traveled from a covered wagon from Idaho to Utah. So he lived in this time that nobody talked about these things, right?
It wasn't even thought of.
It wasn't even thought of. It wasn't even known to even talk about him.
And when you say you guys, this guy was 6'6", maybe 6'5", hands the size of bear paws.
Yes.
And he just was just this intimidating big guy, but the sweetest. Like you would never know that in his mind he was going through that stuff.
Yeah.
Because he was the sweetest, like just the most gentle guy that I've probably ever met. I mean, way different than I am.
and me.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
So Grandma comes back and she starts crying, and she said that Grandpa struggled deeply with OCD and anxiety, and the reason why he did certain things in his life were to take care of that. And I said, well, what are those things? And he gardened. He had one of the best green thumbs that I knew, and he would go outside and he would garden. And Grandma said that was the only way that he was able to work through these things and keep him busy, that it didn't go absolutely stir crazy. I had a very incredible experience that I felt him around me when I was struggling with these things, saying that I've gone through these things. I know how you're feeling. Remember how gentle I am, that it's okay that you have these intrusive thoughts or these OCD issues. So the history for sure is there, right? And
you know what's funny about that, the gardening thing? You remember when you were so little, but we would go like on a road trip and go down and visit them.
Yeah.
And they always had we'd go like in the summer, when the garden is bearing some fruit, and just like a swarm of locusts go out there and just take everything. It must have driven him crazy. Like to be, to have that be his thing that pays off, and then all these idiot great grandchildren come through and just destroy it. Poor guy.
He's like, I put so much work into this, and we're eating not totally ripe
strawberries
and strawberries and everything. Gosh. And he's like, man, they're so close.
Those sons of
yeah.
So, but he never said a word. Like he just, even if it was bugging him.
Yep, he didn't. And so I guess going back to answer your question, obviously the history is there. For me growing up, I don't ever remember a time, and even into my adulthood right now, that I don't wake up and have that immediate feel of anxiety. And luckily I have some incredible doctors that we're working through some things right now. And I told you this podcast is a funny timing for me because I'm literally in it. And it's been a hard past couple years. But going back to what it looked like when we were younger, you know this, not just because I was kind of a nervous kid, but I woke up every single night, and you probably heard my feet running across from one end of the house to the other. And I would go wake up mom and dad and have to have one of them come back and put me back to sleep. And I did that until I was 13 years old just because I was so scared of everything. Like my anxieties would just escalate. And it seemed like as I got older and older and older, and like you said, the world started to really surface and I kind of understood what it was. And, it was, yeah, it's a hard thing, but it's kind of, it kind of just made me who I am. So
Yeah. And, like, you're an okay guy. No.
thank you.
No, but you're right. It does form us into, like, I think it's like a really hot refiner's fire that kind of we, end up in. And I think everyone has their own like refiner's fire, but it just is an interesting like way that we have been formed, like our psyches,
Yeah.
right, have been formed. But I do remember you getting up every single
Every night.
running out, because you wouldn't even be like,
It wasn't a
mom and
walk.
dad were still awake.
It was a
You
full
like
sprint.
run out, like I just run, and then sometimes dad would wait
Yeah.
outside the door because he didn't want you to, so he could like just catch you and
Yep.
put you back to bed.
It was always it would be a run and look to the living room to see if they were awake yet. And if not, I'd veer off to the left through the kitchen to their bedroom.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. I tell you. So it's funny because for me the nighttime is always the worst for me, always, and it's like this. I can feel it when it's coming. I get this pit like right down
Yeah.
in the like almost in my like pelvis where I'm just I can feel it, and it just grows. It starts to grow, and I know at that moment I have two choices. I can fight it and lose, or I can let it ride out and still lose, but not lose as bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's coming and you can't stop it once that goes.
The worst thing for me is oftentimes I don't typically sleep that great because of just how active my mind is. And a lot of times I'll wake up in the middle of the night. And if I wake up and I start feeling that growth, it's that same thing you're talking about. It's like, oh, there it is. I have to make a decision at that point to look around and be like, why am I so nervous and scared in this moment? Nobody else is. My girls are sleeping upstairs. My wife is next to me. There's nothing happening in this moment. And I've got to talk myself into that. Be like, I'm so scared and I'm so nervous and I'm on the verge of a panic attack, but really why? You know what I mean? And there's typically not a reason. And so when I start feeling it, it's that way. It's like, okay, I'm going to be nervous and have like this feel, but I think I can go back to sleep. But if I let it escalate to another point, like I'm up, that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same. It's always at night. It's very rarely during the day for me, but I think the nighttime there's a sort of like this, this sort of just unknown in the dark, right? Things are just, it's different at night. We're not really meant to exist in the dark,
We're not night
right?
people.
Yeah. So, it makes sense. I think a lot of people have issues in the nighttime, just sleeping, and you wear a CPAP just like I do.
Yep.
Right. And that's helped me some to like get better sleep.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a good night's sleep for 15 years,
Yeah.
20 years, even when I was drinking.
Which is a death sentence to people that struggle with something mental.
Yeah.
Sleep is the cure for a lot. I mean, I'm not going to call it a cure. That's not fair. But sleep is one of the things that we have to ensure that we're doing. And if we're not doing that, then things spiral and get worse.
Yeah.
So,
Let's go back to your teenage.
yeah.
'Cause you didn't know as a teenager what you were feeling. You just know you felt off.
Yep.
I had the same thing. There wasn't like and you were a teenager in the 2000s.
2000, well, yeah, late 90s, 2000s.
Okay. And so it was still pretty unknown, like that,
Yeah.
the condition. It wasn't talked about at all. And if you did talk about it, it was kind of like, suck it up.
Yep.
Just deal with it. Right. And so I always felt like I was like, how? I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to stop feeling this way.
Yeah.
Tell me, from your perspective as a teenager, not having those resources that we have now,
Yeah.
how you dealt.
The biggest thing for me was OCD and anxiety obviously go hand in hand. And my compulsions were probably how I dealt. Not probably, they were. You probably don't know this, but I had a routine every single night that before I went to bed that would sometimes take me a half hour or more, because if I messed up at all, I would restart and I would restart and I would restart. And it went down to how many times I looked under my bed. And then I had to go down and a lot of times check and make sure that mom or dad had turned the oven off. And then if I went through this whole process and did something that was felt a little funny, I would start over again. And so these things were how I coped, which is an extremely unhealthy way to cope. But my anxiety was so high that I felt like if I did those things, it would calm my anxiety for a moment until it didn't. I would walk out of the house the same way every time and step on the same 4 cracks that I did every single day my whole life. And if I didn't, I'd circle back around and do it again. And then school was an absolute battle. And a lot of people would be like, well, it's ADHD or it was this, but it's just the fact that I was so entrenched in my struggles and my anxiety that I really just couldn't focus on a lot of what was going on around me. Intrusive thoughts, I didn't know what they were at that time, but now that I've learned and struggled with those, I look back and I'm like, man, through high school, I just struggled with these intrusive thoughts, which in turn made me do more compulsions and more things that, there's superstitions and then there's the next level, right? And the next level for me, and it was painful. Like I didn't know at the time. I just thought I had some quirks and I would do these things. But it was a heavy part of my life for sure, because I just didn't understand. I was just like doing these things to cope. At the time I wouldn't drink alcohol, but it's the same thing, right? I was like doing something to take care of those anxieties and those struggles.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't remember having, like, I didn't know that stuff.
Yeah.
That's, those are things that a lot of times when they're happening to you, first of all, you don't understand it.
Yep.
Second of all, even if you did understand it, you're not going to stop it because it helps you
Yep.
cope. That's how it was for me with alcohol. Like I knew it wasn't good for me, right? I knew it was hurting my body. It was making me sick. Anything that makes me feel like I was poisoned, probably should stay away from, but I didn't care.
Yep.
Because that was what got me through.
In the moment, you felt better.
Yeah. For that moment, I didn't feel
Yep.
weird. I didn't feel scared. You said something that's I think that so many people, especially guys, but everybody we don't want to feel scared, but we also don't want to admit when we do feel scared, right? I was scared every day of my life.
Yeah.
I still get scared about things, it's a different kind of fear now, but as a kid, I was scared to leave the house sometimes, scared to so my mom, obviously our dad and my mom are divorced, and my mom would come get us once a month to go to her house. I was too scared to go with her sometimes. And that's my mom.
Yeah.
Like it was because I was leaving the house and I didn't know what was going to happen. Like I didn't, was out of my routine. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like even some of the most familiar things, like my,
Your
going
family.
with my mom was too uncomfortable for me to do because it took me out of the routine that I was used to, and I know it made my mom, it broke her heart, but I didn't have the wherewithal to care about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just knew that I couldn't handle it in my head.
So how, about my history with the church and tried to go on a mission and I never wanted to do that. That was when I went and tried to go on a mission. It took me to that. It was scary. It was so hard. But then it took me out of all of those habits that I just talked with you about. I went to Spain and I couldn't do my OCD stuff. I was with a companion. It was weird. Like I couldn't do all of those things that I had accustomed myself to drop my anxieties, and it wrecked me. Like it totally wrecked me. And now to your point, I still struggle. My wife and Katie and I are supposed to go on a cruise. And it's like freaking me out, but it shouldn't. It freaks me out because it's more of like the agoraphobia stuff. I hate being in a situation that I don't feel like I can get out of. And so for me, I'm on a cruise and like, if something happened and I'm like, have a panic attack or I go into some mental breakdown, which is so not going to happen, but in my mind it could, I can't get off the boat. Like I'm stuck. The same with, I'm supposed to go fly to the Philippines for work twice a year. And that is it's not the trip. It's not the flight. It's not flying. I'm not scared of flying. It's the fact that if I'm on an airplane and I had a panic attack, I can't get off. Like it's that feeling of being stuck and being trapped. That's that huge fear for me that causes massive anxiety. And
This crazy guy's on the no-fly list.
I just need to get on no fly list so I can tell my boss, like, sorry, I can't go. Sorry.
They think I'm going to blow stuff up.
Here's my name. It's on the no fly list. Like, can't you see?
I flipped out
Yeah.
and now I can't go.
Well, I just always feel bad. There's probably some poor lady sitting next to me and I'm just like fidgeting and moving around. And she's like, what is this guy doing, man? Like,
Somebody give this guy a value.
yeah,
Who has value?
yeah. Give me 7. So, but in the end, I totally get it. It's like putting yourself in those situations that you shouldn't be scared of, but they are scary because I'm scared of my anxieties. Like I'm scared of what now everybody's probably like, man, you're not dealing with this very well. I am, but but it's fresh right now. I told my brother there's some situations going on right now that are surfacing some things, and it's good because I'm dealing with them and having to deal with them. But yeah.
Well, the thing is, what I've realized is there's no template for this, right? Every single person, even though we suffer from a lot of the same things, our experiences are going to be totally different, right? So, and that's the hard part about mental health is that everybody's brain is unique. Yeah. The ailment might be the same, but everybody's brain is going to deal with it differently. Yeah. And so there is no one way to do it. And so I think like people, and especially people that maybe don't have, that they don't quite understand the clinical side of anxiety and OCD that make, I used to have to wear my ring the proper way. Otherwise I couldn't stop thinking about it throughout the day. Things like that. People, they don't necessarily, I can't, even to this day, I still can't have like the volume on the TV or like my air conditioner
on an odd number,
except for 5. 5's okay because
23 is okay for me for some reason.
Yeah. Right. Isn't that weird? Yeah. But on an odd number, I can't have it.
Yeah.
It drives me insane. I can't do it. Yeah. And so like, but I think like people, when they don't understand it, they think like, well, you're not dealing with it, like you said, very well.
Yeah.
But in our minds, like the progress that you've made from the time that you went on your mission until now, it's like you've dealt with things that most people couldn't quite understand. Yeah. And so, from the outside in, maybe they're like, man, this dude is still freaking nuts. Yeah. Like, has he even done anything? Yeah. But you have, like, I've seen it, you've dealt with things that are hard and you still continue to do it. And that's what people don't understand is there's no end to the battle, right? It doesn't just go away. And you said something to me once that stuck with me. A couple things about this. Number one, you said, I said, I was hoping maybe I could come off my medication at some point, maybe I can feel better. And you said, what if it's keeping you right where you need to be?
Yeah.
Right. I never thought about it like that because I had never really accepted the fact that it's a lifelong battle.
Yep.
Right. It's like I'm never going to get better.
Yeah.
I just have to like learn.
This is what it is.
And have the resources and the people and the support network around me to handle that. And you've put together a great support network.
Yeah.
You have a very, very patient and understanding wife. Which is lucky because guys like us need patient women.
Golly.
Right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So tell me, I mean, as far as like family and relationships, how has it affected that?
Yeah. So, it's affected it deeply. For years and years and years, I didn't let Katie in on it because I didn't want my stresses to be her stresses. Until that came to a head almost 3 years ago in March. Where I almost made some mistakes that cost me my marriage. And I look back at it and it was fully due to the inability to manage my mental health. And so talk about patience. She was able to take a step back and obviously be, I didn't step out on my wife. I didn't do anything like that, but put myself into some situations where a married man shouldn't be putting himself into. And so that affected my relationship deeply to the point where we're as good as we've ever been right now through a lot of hard work. But the first 10 years of our marriage, I would say, were a bit of a struggle because I was just battling this internally. She knew things had gone on to the point where we went, I don't know if you know this, we went on our honeymoon and a lot of my anxiety and stresses and these big issues, OCD will surface during really stressful times. I got married. We were moving across the country to Rhode Island the next week. I had just gotten that new job that I, with Dealer Socket that I worked for so long. And I was on our honeymoon talking to my therapist every single day. And she was probably like, what in the world did I get myself into? Like, what is going on? But I had like broken. I was like, this is like all these things, cross country move, job, new job, marriage, all the big three happened in that moment. You know what I mean? And it like broke me. So I'm calling, and she was patient enough to just be like, I don't understand at all what's going on, but I'm here for it. Right. We moved to Rhode Island. We see some really amazing doctors to try to help with my OCD and all those kinds of things. So this is a long way to say that for some reason, I got blessed with Katie, who just never questioned it. She was just like, okay, like I don't get it, but I'm here for it. And she's been with me every step of the way. And even to the point where over the last 3 years, like I share everything with her, how I'm feeling, my struggles, like, man, just today I'm struggling. And she'll just be like, hey, I know a nap sometimes resets you. Go take a nap. Like, we've got 2 little girls at home and she's been with them all day, but she'll tell me like, hey, go take a bath or go take a nap. Like, try to get a reset, like see where we can get you. It's just amazing, but it's affected, I think Dad and I for a long time, he couldn't figure out why I thought a certain way. He couldn't figure out why I would do certain things. Where he's learned now, I think more than he ever has, and he's able to understand a little bit. For those of you who don't know, my dad doesn't struggle with like mental health. Like he's just like anxiety. I don't really understand what that is. And I'm
like
like,
the most
gosh, that would be, I was
guy.
like, how would that be?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sleeps peacefully.
Yes.
He wakes up, does his thing like
Yes.
all day, just even.
Yeah.
I was just talking about this the other day. Like, how in the world would that be
Yes.
to be Dad?
Yep.
Where I could just be like, everything's great.
Like-
he just never struggle with any of
Not
it.
wake up feeling scared. Like, it's just
He wakes
like,
up like,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
the other little sound in the background, like the nice good morning sunrises. That's Dad. He's just, everything's great.
He told me the other day that he got so wound up and he was so anxious. And as he was telling me that, I was like, well, this is weird. I don't even know how to respond to this.
Like, is this a dream?
Yeah.
Something feels like, yeah.
So, but in the end, I think that it's affected so many relationships for me in my life that some for the better and some for the worse. I have incredible relationships because I've been able to connect with certain people around things like this. And then I've had other relationships that really hurt. For instance, mission relationships, like companions were probably like, this guy is up in the night, which I literally was up in the night. But I mean,
Right. Yeah.
But I mean,
Figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my wife, I almost ended my marriage because of it. So, it's, if not controlled, it's a dirty little thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm on my 3rd marriage. I just, didn't. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, I think.
But you got a good one
Yeah, I
now.
got a good one.
Yes.
Yeah. She's so patient. But who knows? Maybe she'll get sick of me too.
You can come live with me.
Then Katie's never staying. Yeah, she's out. Yeah. There's no. I mean, one hawker's enough.
Yeah, that's
2 of them. So, but for me, it's funny because like the relationships. I think the anxiety, of course, I never let it be like the direct, that never directly affected my relationships with people. It was my coping that affected them, like it. So anxiety was sort of is what drove it. It was the catalyst, but the way I coped at the time, because I didn't know why I was feeling so weird. So I would drink to feel normal, which I wanted to feel normal every day. So I drank a lot, that's what hurt people.
Yeah.
Right. That like literally from that time in my life, from when I was 15 until I'm 28 or 29 years old, I don't have like a single solid relationship left from that period in my life. And that's a sad thing to think about. Like it's, I wrecked essentially everything during that time. And it was only because I was trying to cope, trying to feel normal, trying to like connect with humanity in a way, a very unhealthy way, but something that I couldn't do if I wasn't drinking.
Yeah.
Turns out I couldn't do it when I was drinking either, but it's so hard. You're just grasping at something to feel normal
Yeah.
and try to like have something that you can hold on to,
Yeah. For
and
sure.
for me, it was alcohol, but it was destroying more than it wasn't helping. It was destroying.
Yeah.
You had a little bit of struggle with,
Yep.
with some vices like that too. Not just the OCD vices, but like other things.
Yeah. So, in college, when I became legal to buy alcohol, it became really easy for me to go down that path, right? I think it started before that, in college, and it was getting it from friends and stuff like that, and I realized there was about a 2-year period of my life that it was 5 to 6 days a week. That it wasn't. That was the period that I was really hiding from things, and it wasn't. I never just socially drank. Like if I drank, I was just going to get blitzed, right? And that I look back and I have a couple of the same experiences where it wasn't a nightly thing, but I can count them in my head that I got in a car and I drive, and I'm just like those moments. We could be sitting here having a whole different conversation about how things have affected me and how things have affected loved ones around me. It would have changed everything. And
Through a pane of like prison glass,
Yes.
in a visitor,
and I'm so angry at myself, and I think I've forgiven myself for those things, but I'm so angry that I would put myself and other people, more importantly, other people, in a situation where somebody who cares so deeply about people could have caused some extreme hurt in people.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it is. I feel ashamed by it a
Yeah.
lot of times, even though that isn't helpful either,
yeah,
right? Like looking back and feeling ashamed about stuff isn't great for our mental health.
Yeah.
Anyways, right? Like you sort of have to move on and forgive yourself for the stupid things that we did and know that it could have been way worse, right? But I still do. I'm not supposed to feel shame. I'm not supposed to feel, that, but I still do.
Yeah.
I think it's not possible to really let go of it.
Yeah.
Right. I think though, like for me, and I think I've seen this, with you have developed a bit more of a positive outlook on life, learning how to feel compassion for other people even when you're in a dark place. Has there ever been a time though when you felt like you didn't want, like people just
Oh yeah.
were awful? Yeah, you didn't. I wasn't connecting with humanity for a while there.
Yeah.
It was just about coping. It
Yeah.
was in survival mode.
It's funny because I've become a professional at hiding how I'm truly feeling. I could be in a depression and so deep and so dark, and somehow, if I didn't want her to know, my wife wouldn't know about it, right? I can go to work, and whether it's this job or other jobs, and be high level strategic thinking, doing all those things, but inside just being like ripped apart. And it's in those times that I just want to crawl into a hole and just be like, all right, like, let's just get through this. Let's make it through this. But is my goal is to let those around me know exactly how I'm feeling and what's going on. So my boss, business partner, he knows everything that I go through. He stepped in my office the other day and is like, man, hey, you good? Like, you just look like, he just did this motion. Like, you just look like you're just down, right? And I've been going through it, and he knew and he understand. We close the door and we have a conversation. And my goal in my life right now is to let everybody around me know exactly where I'm at, how I'm feeling. So there's no surprises, right? He always knows, and my team knows around me, and it's hard to work for me. I totally understand that there are times that I'm probably a little bit of a jerk, but I'm not meaning to be. But they know and understand, then I'll apologize and be like, guys, I'm sorry if I'm short. I'm sorry if I'm this, I'm in it right now. And they just know, like, okay, like, cool, we support you. So whether it's my family, whether it's the people that I work with, whether it's people on a podcast, whatever it is, like, I will always right now strive to let them know and understand exactly how I'm feeling, because that sets me up for more success. and then I'm not in it alone. Also, I think there's a little selfishness to it, because if I let people know and understand that I'm not in it alone, and that's the selfish aspect of it. But the other piece of it is, if you know and understand maybe what I'm going through and what I'm feeling right now in this moment, then maybe I can get a little grace when I possibly am not the best boss, husband, father, things like that.
It's really smart. It's a really good perspective. This is the thing that I think, like, most people, this is where we lose people, right? Is not letting them know what we're going through, because you create allies. Like, it's a real thing. You can't create a support network if people don't know what you're going through, right? It's impossible.
Yeah.
And we can't, people like us, if we try to do it by ourselves, it just gets worse.
Yeah.
Right. I have to have people around me, and it took me I'm a slow learner. I'm mostly dumb, and so, it took me a long time to understand that if I don't talk about it, and this is why I started doing this because there's somebody out there who's going to hear what you say, that's going to feel like, okay, maybe if I just tell somebody, right? Because it's a lot of people are afraid, but we're not supposed to show that we're afraid.
Yeah.
Ever, right?
Which
People
is crazy.
Yeah, I know. People are struggling, but we're not supposed to tell anybody, because we got to be, whatever, project this picture of perfection. And if we can show our imperfections to people, they, first of all, empowers them to show theirs, to feel good about saying something to you. And you probably have people on your team that can come back and say to you, man, I feel the same way. Yeah. I didn't know that, right? I told my story to my agents here one time, and I told them all about it. And I had somebody come up afterwards to me and say, I just thought you were a suit. I had no idea. Like, now I see a human in front of me, I had another person come up and say, I'm 26 years sober this year. It helps people to understand. And also it creates an alliance, like sort of this really collaborative lifestyle with people around you that you had no idea were having the same struggles, but now you can work with and work together, Yeah. So are there people, I imagine there are people on the team that have.
Yeah. So we have a young lady on my team, customer success manager. She comes to me pretty frequently with her struggles. She just had a baby. There were some postpartum issues, to the point where she even called me one night. She actually lives pretty close. Her family lives pretty close, and she was at her parents' house, and she called me and just needed some help. She had a baby. She was 2 weeks post-delivery, and she was going through some really deep postpartum issues. And not that I've ever dealt with postpartum, but I've dealt with depression and those things. And she called me, and we went over and we had some discussions about it. And I might be more open. I might be annoyingly open about it, but to me that helps, right? Because of situations like that where she calls and she's like, hey, like, I need some help. I want to talk through some stuff. So we went over, talked through some stuff with her and her family, and had some great conversation. Another girl on my team, another customer success manager came, her boyfriend struggles with the same diagnosis as I've had, and we've kindled a great relationship. We've run together in the past, and we've just had great conversations, and he's told me things that he wouldn't probably tell just a random guy that he doesn't understand struggles with the same things. And so not only has in times maybe these issues hurt relationships, I would venture to say I've gained more relationships than have been hurt, which is a really amazing thing.
It is amazing, but it wouldn't happen if you didn't
share.
If you didn't share, and that's the thing. Like, people out there, they're scared to share, and that's why I want people to hear our stories, because if you can have an ultra runner, a martial artist type, tough guys doing things, and still talking about what's perceived to be weakness, right? But normalize it, that it's not weakness. It's just life, that how we deal with things, right? Our brains are wired different than others.
Yeah.
And so I think it empowers people, right? You make relationships, you sort of like, because you're open. Without that, though, you imagine like the people, like this girl's boyfriend or the woman who had the baby, they might have not had anybody to turn to at that and in those times, right?
Yep. I think it's one of, it maybe sounds funny, but I've really believe that one of my callings in life is to be able to talk to people and go through. And when I'm in my really, really hard times, which become few and further between as I learn and cope and understand what's happening, that is something that I lean on. Is like, this time is maybe going to help somebody. This time I may be able to share what I'm going through right now with somebody in the future, whether it's incorporating ultra running and mental health, or whether it's incorporating, I've talked to some executives at other businesses that have never shared how they feel, but the stress at work is tearing them apart, and they have some major depressions, and they're going through anxiety, and the stress is just ripping them apart. And to be able to look at somebody else on your level and be like, yeah, like you get it, is a huge thing for me. Having mom who understands it to a level as well. Having the most people in our corner is the biggest thing, because, not to take it this direction, but I had a buddy that ended up killing himself, and committing suicide, because nobody knew that he had any struggles or any issues. And I will represent that as much as I possibly can by trying to put it out there as much as possible.
Well, in this darkness, like the darkness that you feel, there are times where it comes to a point where you're at a crossroads. Like, do I want to do this anymore?
Yeah.
Or do I not?
Yep.
And I've been at that crossroad before, where I'm like, is this what I really want to do with my, like, this is how I want to live my life?
Is it going to be this way forever?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a darkness that it's difficult to describe unless you've been there. But obviously, like there's a friend of mine, same thing, just, in this industry, who had struggles and took his own life, and on the outside, he was the sweetest, nicest, upbeat. You never would have known. But he never told anybody.
Yeah.
He never told anybody what was really inside of him. And it was a surprise to all of us. But if, I would venture to say that if the people that don't talk about it, that darkness just starts to consume, right? And I think having that mission, and that's why I started doing this, is because there are people that this can, just hearing two guys sit here and talk about the stupid crap that they've done, because of the way our brains are wired, gives them the right to say, okay, right? These guys have been down the dark road. I'm on the dark road. We have two people that have eked out a pretty successful, existence.
Somehow,
I know, because both, I'm dumb and you're dumber.
Yeah, exactly.
So I
wasn't going to say it, but
but I think it could help people say, maybe there's a shot.
Yeah.
Maybe I should talk about it. And you guys, you should talk about it. You should say to the people that are around you, it's okay to tell them what you're feeling. Society has told us that our feelings are bad, especially as men.
Yep.
Right? That we got to just be tough and be like, strong and provide and, whatever. But that perception of men, it's an old perception, and it's just a different time now.
Yep.
Where the pace of this world that we're not designed to run at,
we are not.
Where our brains are primitive still. It affects men and women the same. Like I don't have to be ashamed that I have flaws, and that I feel down, and that sometimes I just want to cry. Right? Here's this 6'2", 250-pound guy, and I feel like crying sometimes just because of how overwhelming things are.
So I had a remote consultation with my doctor today. We were going through things, and I cried. It was just, things were feeling heavy, and we were working through some stuff, and I cried, and I was like, gosh, I'm so sorry to get emotional. She's like, why are you sorry? Don't ever apologize about getting emotional. And is what I always remember is, I get emotional whether it's crying or not. I feel deep emotions, and it's no different than anybody. We all feel those deep emotions. And I think we're sent here to feel. Like that's why we're sent here to have experiences and to do amazing things. And amazing looks different for every single person. But my challenge when I talk to people about this is like feel those feelings, because when you're in those down, depressed, or you're anxious or you're struggling, it's a fight or flight. Like we want to fight those feelings or run away from them. But one of the things that I've told myself is, look, I was sent here to feel these feelings. I'm in it and I've got to feel it, and it's gonna, like, sometimes it doesn't feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but there is. Like there's always a light. And I have hope that there is, and that's what's going to get me through this. But I need, for some reason or another, to, whether it's to help somebody else or for me, I need to feel this right now. And that's also my thing when it comes to running, right? If I'm in something and I'm struggling and it hurts so bad, I'm supposed to feel that. Like I'm in it. Don't fight it. Don't flight. Like don't run away from it. Feel it, recognize it, learn something from it, and try to walk away. And it seems so easy to say as we're sitting here, but it's not. Like,
No.
I get that. And somebody's going to look at it and be like, dude, it's not that easy. I know it's not that easy. But feeling those things, something will come out of it.
And you're right about that. But I lose that battle more oftentimes than I win it.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Facing it's so hard.
I want to fight it. That's always my thing.
I do
just
too.
want to fight it off. And that just ends up making it worse. Sometimes I can ride it out and feel it, understand it, and try to learn. But it's okay if you fail that battle. Like it's okay.
Yes.
You just got to keep trying, because it's going to be a lifelong journey.
Yep.
You can't just win today and then expect that you're going to win every single time. You can't lose today and expect that you're going to lose every single time. But as long as you know what you're working toward.
Yep.
Right.
That's right.
So it's the Breaking Point podcast. There was a time in my life where I told you, there's a crossroads. It was the breaking point. Either I'm going to die or I'm going to have to make a change. I have to really face what is happening. I can't drink myself into a coma every night anymore. I can remember the exact moment when I woke up and that happened, right? Is there a time, the breaking point for you, where you were like, okay, I got to fix this, something, or I'm going to lose it?
Yeah. I think there were two of them for me. And one propelled me to meet Katie. And is what happened is I was doing all of the things to help myself feel better. I was chasing girls. I was drinking. I was doing all of those things. And I remember vividly sitting there and telling myself, or having the feeling of, you either going to go all in on that lifestyle, or you're going to have to take a step back and recognize that you need to make some changes and try to propel your life in a different direction. And I truthfully felt that in that moment, it was very, very much a choice. I either had to, if I would have continued on, I probably would have led my life that way forever and probably would have been sitting there doing the same thing today. But I chose to take good steps in my life. Met Katie a couple weeks after I made that decision, and ended up marrying her. That was one. And then recently, actually, I would say has been another one within the past couple of months, where I think we all can go and sit in front of a doctor and get a diagnosis. But it doesn't really matter as long as you figure out what it is that makes you feel like you're functioning and living a normal life. I had hung my hat on so long of bipolar 2 and ADHD and OCD. I had hung my hat on that for so long. And I was seeing a doctor who I think is an incredible doctor, but they were just trying these medications. You're bipolar 2, they give me, take this, take this, take this. I had a very, very strong feeling of needing to advocate for myself and going and saying, look, I do believe we have some issues. We have major issues that we need to take care of. But I think I need to look in a different direction, and we need to test some things, and we need to start working through some things. And to where I'm at today in comparison to a couple months ago, and that journey is still very fresh. But I had hung my life around those diagnoses, and it didn't ever seem to like get better, right? Things were just kind of still. I'd get better for a little bit, then this would happen, then I'd get better for a little bit. So I think those two are kind of like breaking points of being like, no, like I need to advocate for myself. And that's what I would challenge everybody to do is don't just take somebody's word for it. Don't take my word for it. Don't take Eric's word for it. Don't take a doctor's word for it. Advocate for yourself and tell your true feelings, and make sure that you don't just go to a doctor and be like, I've got anxiety or I've got this. It's a very long way of saying you know yourself better than anybody knows yourself. If you don't feel like you're being treated by a doctor the right way, advocate for yourself. If you don't feel like you're getting a fair shake in one way or another with people around you, advocate for yourself. And that's something that I've done recently, and I'm starting to see some major changes with it. But those would be, I think, my two big breaking points. One's very fresh on my mind, and one is just something that I knew I had to make a choice in the moment. So
It's pretty nice that we can identify those moments, because I have to check myself every now and then, like think back on that point where things could have gone one way or the other, and I have to hold on to that sometimes because it's a daily battle.
Yeah.
I'm a drunk, right? There's not a day that's gone by since I quit drinking that I haven't thought about starting drinking again. You know what I mean? There hasn't been a day that's gone by that I've been like, dang it, I feel awful. I should do something different.
Yeah.
I should go back to the old lifestyle. I have to look at that one point and kind of hold on to it and be like, do I want to end up at that spot again where I'm deciding to probably sign my death warrant or get here? Which is worse?
Yep.
Right? And so it's not. I think it's so good to hold on to those moments so you can know like when that was, but also so you can kind of feel it again and feel the decision. You can make the decision daily based on the circumstances that you were in back when you decided to make those choices. And the same thing right now, it sort of recreates that decision point, that breaking point, where you're just like, now I can remember why I made the decision to be where I am right now.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
Well, I can tell you just from a big brother standpoint, I'm proud of you. You're an example to me. The things that you do, the things that you think, the things that you say, and you're an example to me, and I'm thankful for that. I appreciate, you coming and talking about some of the hard things.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. We could get all lovey and crazy, but I look up to you and I appreciate everything. And there's not a time that I don't think that I could call you, whether it's 2 a.m. or 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the evening, that you wouldn't be at my house in a second. So
yeah, you're right. And we have we don't hang out a whole. I mean, we have busy lives, but that's true. I know the same thing.
Yeah.
We'll always be there.
Yep.
So thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing. And I learned some things I didn't know about
me too.
you. So
yeah.
we're even a little bit closer now.
Right.
So I love you, brother. I appreciate you.